This is our ProLinkHFA webinar series. Thank you for attending. We appreciate your time. We are going to be covering improved workflow and task management, specifically discussing a feature enhancement that we have made to Procorum. So today's agenda, I'm going to cover just briefly our general information about ProLink, and then I'm going to hand it off for our business presentation by Ryan, and then a live demo of Procorum by Tom. So I'm Bree Kreuter. I'm the Executive VP for ProLink. I've been involved with the company for about 15 years. Tom Royal is one of our product managers joining us today for that demo piece, and Ryan Kim is our VP of Sales and Marketing. Thanks, guys, for joining. Okay, so going over some quick information about this webinar series. So we've hosted our ProLinkHFA webinar for a couple of years now. I think 2020-ish timeframe it started. Occurs on the first Wednesday of each month, about 45 minutes per session, geared towards all housing finance agencies. We generally tend to cover either topics related to selecting or managing a technology solution for the affordable housing industry, that enterprise level software support, and then the adoption needs that can come with that, and the evolving needs that come with making sure that your technology is evolving with your business. And then we also focus a lot of our sessions on kind of industry level topics. So presenting that business case at the beginning and then covering live demos. We love to take advantage of using this platform to share new features as we release those as well into our products. So we started this year a little bit differently, establishing like specific themes on a quarterly basis. So our first few months was really about kind of that adoption improvement and implementation best practices. You can find all of those sessions that we hosted between February and I guess April, since we're in May now. Those are on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and look at those events that have already occurred. And now we're going to be focusing between May and July on reporting solutions. And then our last topic will be compliance updates and best practices, which we will cover between August and October. October, we host our annual user group conference, which is open to everyone. So whether you're a client of ProLink or not, you're welcome to join. We have a couple of guest speakers we usually include covering industry level topics. And then we do a lot of training throughout that conference. So that will be coming in November. I'm sorry, I might have said October, but it will be coming in November. December, we take off. January we plan, and then February, we will kick back off with our 2024 webinar schedule. So thank you guys again for joining and continuing to attend these sessions. Most of you know us. There might be a few people who are newer to this group. So ProLink Solutions has been in the affordable housing industry for quite a long time now, over 20 years, serving all the major pillars. We consider the 3 pillars of affordable housing, which include those local and state housing finance agencies, syndicators and investors and developers. And we really try to build systems that support the full life cycle and holistic business process for our clients. So their portfolio management systems that we support the affordable housing with, the affordable housing industry with. And our team is made up of technologists first and foremost, with a lot of experience in the affordable housing industry. So we have a lot of tenure at ProLink built into our team, and people are very passionate about the mission that we serve. So that's a little bit about us. Quickly going over our leadership involvement in the industry. We support 17 state housing finance agencies, 2 supportive services agencies, 5 major syndicators / investors in affordable housing. We're actively engaged with NCSHA, looking forward to seeing you in Seattle next month in June. We also manage, we actually support the NAMA XML standards group on Procorum. So that's something we're heavily involved with in tracking and trying to influence the changes needed to improve that NAMA XML export from those property management systems and make compliance an easier process for those using the data. We host this monthly webinar. We also do that conference I spoke to earlier and look for any opportunities we get through NCSHA and other venues to really be involved in industry level conversations and help support this, the evolution of affordable housing, make it easier for more people to participate, explore technology solutions, and improve the way that we do business. So here's just a quick picture we like to share showing the states that we're currently supporting across those 17 housing finance agencies and the 2 supportive services agencies. So we're nearly coast to coast here. And then finally, just as a starter, we're going to be focusing on Procorum today since the feature we'll be demoing is in Procorum. But I'd like to just take a minute to refresh everyone on how our systems work together. So we have ProLinkHFA, which is that database system. And then Procorum is the platform that third parties correspond with our agency to provide information. So information is requested by agencies to those third parties, and those third parties then get to provide that information and collaborate through Procorum with ProLinkHFA as that final database source of record for the agency. So we have developers, we have contractors, we have property managers, we have attorneys, we have all kinds of participants who might be logging in and contributing towards your projects through Procorum. We have a lot of features built into the platform to help through those different business use cases. It's a very flexible tool. We've built a few specific kind of business focused apps within Procorum, like I think you've probably seen our Budget Pro app potentially, which we could highlight again on a future webinar. We have a tenant event submission application in Procorum. So there's a couple specific affordable housing kind of apps built within Procorum, and then the rest of it is really flexible to handle a lot of different business cases. So that's what we will be discussing today. And then just so you are aware of the major modules you'll find in the ProLinkHFA database, we have our multifamily development and bond financing module. We have an asset management and compliance module and our single family development module as the 3 major modules that make up our base product for ProLinkHFA, as well as a number of other kind of modules or functionality built throughout the modules in the pie chart in the middle to support your business process. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Ryan to walk us through today's business case.
All right, thank you, Bree. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, go. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to go over building a workflow at a conceptual level today, and then we'll talk about how that framework applies to Procorum, particularly Procorum's task feature. And then that's to build some foundation before I hand this off to Tom, who will do a demo of Procorum task feature, as well as the new exciting feature called Task Overview, which is a reporting tool that we just released. So I'm going to start my presentation again at a high level with this diagram. I like this diagram because it's abstract, it's conceptual, but it does get a point across. Every workflow, when you think about it, there's a starting point and then there's an end point. So in this diagram, the starting point is this internet, right? There's something that triggers from internet that kicks off the assignment, a task assignment to this person, and he completes the task, and that triggers another task, the following task, for the person in the next line to start the task and complete it, and so forth. So this is a predefined chain of tasks that leads from starting point all the way through the end, where it reaches this person. That's the end point of the workflow. That is really workflow. You create, again, predefined chain of tasks that includes people or resources. One thing is missing is the timeline. So I'm going to go to the next slide to go over those three components again. You have people, you have tasks, and you have timeline to build a workflow. In terms of people, it can be internal team members, multiple teams within an organization, or it could be external people like your customers or your third parties, external partners. In terms of task, as we talked about, there's a beginning point, and then there's a certain logic that triggers certain conditions or rules that triggers from this task so that the next task can start. So there's a little trigger you can build, such as a dependency between two different tasks. So let's say person number one is done with her task. That triggers the next task to be assigned to the next person in line. And then eventually you're driving the endpoint, which is the outcome or the end product you're trying to deliver at the end of that workflow you're building. Timeline is an important aspect. So at the individual task level, you want to make sure you have a deadline or a certain duration that you're enforcing at the individual task level. But then at the holistic workflow level, you want to make sure all this chain of tasks are completed based on that your individual duration. You want to make sure that entire task timeline makes sense to you and it meets the business expectation. So those are three components that goes into building a workflow. So here's a sample workflow I'll be going over with you. And the use case that I'm presenting is competitive LIHTC allocation cycle, 9% credit. And as you can see, we have people, which is in this case is a role. So we have a developer swim lane, multifamily team swim lane, your business unit, and then allocation committee, which is a little bit higher level group within an agency. As I go through this animation, there will be boxes that are popping up, and each individual box represents a task. And then there's a timeline down below. So those are, again, three components that goes into building a workflow. So let's start the animation. On day one, you're announcing NOFA. So you're letting the developer community know that NOFA started. There's an application, funding application that's available. Developer receives funding application, and you provide certain timeline. For example, 3 months, 90 days to turn around and submit that populated application, which goes into multifamily team. You do basic threshold review, such as checking applicants' eligibility. Perhaps, checking is this sponsor in good standing with the agency as far as previous project performance. Checking track record, maybe checking application fee have been submitted, completeness of application package, and so forth. And you give yourself timeline, let's say 60 days, to finish scoring of all the applications that have been submitted for the funding round. And you make recommendation to allocation committee and provide the timeline for the committee, for example, 30 days to create a list of all the awarded projects for the funding cycle. That gives developer LIHTC reservation letter, so they know that they received the LIHTC reservation and they can proceed with the project, and give certain timelines such as 300 days in this example to get to closing. And during that 300 days, a lot of things can happen. Some modification, changes in pro forma numbers, carryover allocation will happen. But this is basically illustrating, chain of tasks you can build. In this case, we have 9 tasks but it's really high level. In real life, you might end up like 10 times more. So you might end up with 90 different tasks to really capture all the activities and timeline associated with your competitive LITEC allocation cycle. And all these tasks can be captured in ProQuorum as a ProQuorum task and build relationship and create, again, the chain of tasks. And so that you can automate a lot of stuff. It's easier to manage at the individual task level and holistic level. The workflow will be completed within the expected timeline. So all those things that can be done on ProQuorum, and that's what we'll be demoing for you today. This is the exact same diagram I showed earlier, but I'm just gonna display tools in place. So the first one, there will be internet or website where you're publishing NOFA. Application templates are generally in Excel. There could be portal where developers are submitting their completed application to you. There's a certain database. You'll be checking the sponsor's prior records and track record. Scoring can be done in some kind of checklist or Excel file. And then you have an email or portal where you're giving feedback to the developer. So all these are the tools that are most likely you already have in place to manage this workflow. But using ProQuorum task, all these activities and tools can be nicely integrated into ProQuorum platform, so you can manage better individual tasks as well as this entire single workflow for the agency. So again, the benefits, increasing visibility. A lot of times in big organization, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. You provide visibility by creating this workflow with multiple swim lanes, reduce risk, particularly on timeline, introducing a change. Now you have sketched out this whole process. You can now start thinking about what can be done to improve it. Maybe make some enhancement to be more efficient so you can cut a timeline. And then efficiency gain. If you adopt ProQuorum as platform to manage all this, that could automate certain tasks such as notifications or reminders. So before handing this off to Tom for demo, I'm just going to do a little refresher on ProQuorum at a high level. So ProQuorum starts, the basic building block starts with account. So account represents your agency, HFA, you have an account. And within the account, you're setting up a lot of work centers, right? Some agencies have like 3,000 work centers. Each work center representing a deal, project, or property. And within individual work center, you invite collaborators. There's a folder structure. There's a tasks, chain of tasks that we've been talking about. And then there's post. And that's all done within the individual work center. So it's fully segregated within the work center. And you invite collaborators. Today, we'll be focusing on tasks within the individual work center. And that's where you use task overview reporting tool to really organize and have a better look at the status of all your tasks that are within a single work center. One thing I like to highlight here is that when Tom demos the ProQuorum, he's going to start with the template work center. So I just wanted to give you a quick refresh on that. Any of this work center can be converted into a template work center. So let's say this one is a template work center. When you create a new work center, let's say work center 6, you don't have to start from scratch. You use template work center, basically copy and paste. And it copies list of collaborators, list of file structure, list of tasks, all those things that have been standardized within a template. You can simply reuse it by using template work center. Very handy feature you should use if you're not yet. The last slide before handing off to Tom will be, again, just highlighting 6 different features that I just wanted to emphasize. as far as individual tasks. First one is task group. So you have, for example, in the LIHTC allocation workflow example I showed you, there are 9 tasks, right? But in real life, there could be like 90 tasks. So you don't want to, that'll be hard to organize. In order to manage 90 tasks, you like to use task group to organize and group these 90 tasks into smaller groups. So you could use task group, you could use like deal stage as a task group. So as deal progresses from stage to stage, task group can be utilized to capture, group all the tasks within each stage. ProQuorum task assignment is done based on role. So you don't have to, within the individual work center, you don't have to worry about remembering who was the developer on this project, right? As long as you have tasks created in template work center and that task have been assigned to a developer role, when you use that template and create a new work center for a certain project, whoever is invited as a collaborator, as a developer to that work center will be assigned to that task that is for developer. So you don't really have to worry about, you know, who is developer or who's property managers and so forth. It's all based on role. Task flow is that's where you build dependency. So when one person finishes a task, that triggers the next task to kick in. That's the task flow, and you'll be able to create dependency. In task flow, there's a duration. Using that duration, ProQuorum will calculate the date for you, the deadline for the next task. So let's say you have 90 days as a duration for like submitting LIHTC application task for developer. When that task kicks in, ProQuorum will add 90 days to the start date and provide that end date. And that's how you assign the due date. And that's how you create reminder setup so that reminder emails will go to developers for how many times or how early before the deadline. All those things can be configured by you. The last thing is file. Tom will show you, but in this, every individual task, you're able to attach a file, and such as like LIHTC application template, you can attach it. So it'll be easier for developer to receive the notification, navigate to the task, and be able to just download the template easy within a task. So that's really the basis or refresher I wanted to provide before handing it off to Tom. So Tom, if you're ready, you can take over the screen.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. I'll go ahead, share my screen. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be taking a look at ProQuorum in action. So I'm going to be highlighting a few things that Ryan pointed out in his slides, and we're going to see how templates can be used to really automate some of your process and the tracking of the different processes and projects along the way, as well as kind of be able to make that process repeatable and, again, easy to track, easy to follow. So I'm actually going to start in ProQuorum with a template. Now, what we commonly see, and a lot of you are using ProQuorum today, you're using it, for file structures, you're using templates to, have a good place to store your documentation and store documents for a project. But today we're going to be focusing on tasks and some of the power that can be used in the template with tasks, as well as highlight some of the new functionality that we've built in ProQuorum. So we've got this demo construction management template here. We've already set up some files and folder structure. When we look at the task as well, this would be an example of an entire project from end to end. And this may not be every single task that, would be a part of that project, but these are going to be the key ones that you're going to need to track, that you're going to need to capture documentation on, capture deliverables for. Maybe there's documents that you need from your developer or any other external collaborators. Now, I went ahead and pre-built this template so that we can use it for the demo today. But do want to point out some of the features of this particular template that I built out and how it was set up. So as Ryan mentioned, you have the ability to organize tasks into what we call task groups. So in this case, we've put tasks in the various phases of a project. So we could have, for example, application submission, initial review, and underwriting. And then within each of these tasks, we've actually set up the tasks so that they are pre-assigned to roles that you would be collaborating with on a project. So in this case, this task is assigned to the developer. You can set up whatever roles you wish for your work center templates. So you could have your developer, architect, contractor, depending on which of those external collaborators that you work with. We've also pre-set up our approvals as part of this process. So you can set up internal approvals. So if you've got internal people that are going to be approving the different things on the task, and we'll see this in action here shortly, you could set up that they're going to be making sure that the documentation was uploaded, attached to the task, and that really the task was complete. Along with tasks, you can actually, as part of the template, you can set up comments. You can put instructions in here for how they would, how your external collaborator would complete this task, what documents they need to attach, as well as, if I go back to another task, we'll look at one that's attached to a file. So in this case, maybe you have application templates, maybe you have other templates that you want your collaborator to fill out. You can attach those to the task so they have that they can download and complete and re-upload back to the task. So for this template, we've got a number of tasks that are already assigned to roles that we're going to be setting up. We've got them, templates already assigned, and we've even chained some tasks together. So if you have a specific order that you need the task to be completed in, you can say that for this example, I can configure that I want this task to be available after another task before it is completed. So you can chain tasks together, and you can even identify the number of days that you want that task to be completed after the previous task was completed. So if you've got a, like again, a repeatable process, if you know that, once a certain phase of the project is done, you're going to open up the next phase for another 90 days. You can preset those tasks so that they're going to, those due dates will automatically increment when the tasks before them are completed. Okay, so that's an overview of the template itself. What I'd like to do next is we're actually going to create a new work center based off of this template. We're going to assign it to a collaborator, and we're going to kind of walk through the life cycle of one individual task. So creating a work center, real easy. We got one button up here. We're going to, in this case, give it a name. I'm going to put this in my 2023 projects category. And again, we're going to select the template to use. You can have multiple templates. So you could have templates, for example, for each phase of the project, templates for different teams within your agency. In this case, we've got everything wrapped up into one template. Some other options that you can do as well is you can validate that, I want to bring in the files and folders, tasks, posts, or collaborators. In this case, I already have a collaborator assigned to this template. So I have my internal development officer that I know that's always going to be working on this work center to do the approvals. And then some advanced options is I can actually auto increment the due date. So if I want to say that, I want to start the due date on this template creation. So when I create this work center, let's say everything's going to start 30 days from today. Now, when I click save, it's actually going to go and create that work center. So it is an import process. It's going to create the files. It's going to create the folders. It's going to create all the tasks that are in there. And you'll get some updates along the way. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a collaborator. So this is going to be our developer that's going to be assigned to some of those tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and put their name in here. This is one that I've used before, so he's already here, and I'm going to assign them to the developer role. So when assigning them to the developer role, we'll see that as long as I had all those tasks already assigned to a role, now it will automatically assign those tasks to that individual. So this would be any new collaborators added to that role will also inherit that task. And the task can be set up to where that, any of those people can complete that task. So I've got this work center ready to go. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to change roles. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to move into our development officer that's going to be approving this task. But I've also logged in on another window here as that developer that I assigned to this project. So I'm going to go in here to this new work center that I created. We'll see that all the tasks are already in place. And now that I could see that, I could look at, here's things that are assigned to me. We'll see that in the task, listing it here as well. And I'm also going to be pointing out a new feature with the task overview and how those can be managed, and you can easily see those. So just to kind of highlight what the workflow is, I've got my first task that's assigned to me. It's an application fee that needs to be completed. Pretty straightforward one. I can either complete it from the main screen or I can complete it here. I'm going to mark this as finished. Now, all of these tasks were set up with the template, so where one person has to complete the task, there's also an approval step, which is going to be for our development officer. So I'm going to save and go back to our list. And I'll see that we've got this task is completed. And the next one is to do the completed application. So as this one, I know that there's a template for it. I'll see my little notification up here that there's a file. So I can download this file, get that template, use that template to fill it out. Just for the sake of time, I've already done that ahead of time. So as I go over to the file, take a look at it, I'm going to assume that I've downloaded this template. I've got a new version that is complete. So now I'm going to upload the final version. And I'll get over to my documents. Sorry. Here's my completed template. So I'm going to upload this. This is now stored in the work center. I can go back to my task now. And now I can complete this task. I can also add a comment to it. Like I say, I've attached a completed application. Go back to the task, and now I'm going to complete it. Okay. So I can continue to go through the task and complete these. As the developer that's assigned to this, there's even some functionality within Procorum where I can go to like my task and I can see everything that's been assigned to me across the various work centers. So in this case, here's that one that we just created, the Bimini Bay Apartments. All right. So now let's take a look at what this would look like from an approval step and how this would be managed on the approval side. So I'm going to jump back over here. I'm actually going to log out. Now I'm going to sign back in under our development officer. And now I'm back in on this project as Robert Argus, our development officer. I could see that some things have been completed in this Bimini Bay Apartments Work Center. Now I can go in here and I could see that there's some things that are in progress or in play. But here's where I want to highlight the new feature that we've developed and released recently with Procorum, the task overview. So this is kind of a longer list, but if I wanted to, for example, toggle over to our task overview, this is a new view that we're providing where I can easily see kind of the status of all the tasks within a work center and where they are as part of the process. So I can see here that, I've got something in yellow, it's pending approval. That's for me to do as a development officer. I can see where these other tasks fall in as well. This new task overview screen, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail towards the end of the demo, but it also provides me for the ability, like if I just wanted to see what's pending approval, I can look at that. I can see that I've got this application fee that's in there that's pending approval. If I clear my filter, go back to the big view, I can also see here that I can tell when files have been uploaded. So if I'm expecting an upload, for example, for this completed application, and if this is something that, I need to go review, I would see that, hey, there's a file that came in here just recently, as well as the most recent comment on this task, where they've attached the completed application that's ready to go. Also, one of the things that Ryan mentioned is that these tasks are chained together. So this pending prior task completion is also letting me know that it's dependent upon this pending approval task here. So I'm going to go approve this one first. Everything looks good. We have the application fee. And I'll approve it. And now that task is complete. And now when I go back to my task overview here, I'll see that it has been changed to complete. And now my next task in the list is pending approval. So again, this is that completed application. It's, for me to approve. We see there's that most recent upload. And one of the new features that we put in here is that if I want to quickly go see what that file is, I can click directly on the task overview, go to see the application template. And here, Procorum does track, again, all those different versions that are being attached to this template for review. So I can download this, I can review it, I can complete it, and then do that approval. All right. So that's an overview, just kind of like, one task and really the life cycle of a couple of tasks in here. But I also wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about the task overview and highlighting some of its capabilities. So I'm going to change over to another work center that I set up using that same template. And we're just going to pretend that this is a little bit farther along in the process. So we'll see that we're already through the application submission phase. We're already through initial review. And now we're down into underwriting. There's a number of things that have been completed. There's also some things that need to be approved. As I jump back over here into the task overview again, this will give us that nice kind of stoplight report, what's done, what's outstanding, what needs to be approved, what hasn't really started yet. So this would kind of make it easy for us to find those things. So again, if I wanted to filter on what's pending approval, I can do that. We also added some dynamic grouping capability into this. So by default, it's going to group by that task group. So what's, the different phases. But you can also group it by any field in here. So if I wanted to group this by status, I can look at, what's complete. I can look at, on the different things. So maybe if I'm meeting with my development officer or if I'm meeting with my developer, and if I want to look at things, hey, here's all the things that are pending approval. This can make it easy to pull up a list and things that we need to talk about. Also have the ability to filter by any of these. So if we're, again, if we're just focused on, a certain phase, if we just want to focus on due diligence, we can quickly filter on that. Can also filter by role, as well as even just, if I'm looking for certain aspects of a, task, maybe I'm looking for a loan agreement. I can go in here, just search loan and easily pull up those tasks. So again, this new task overview feature provides the ability to, like, if you're managing this project from beginning to end, or if you, have a number of different items that you need to follow up on and take a look at, this will give you a nice overview of the entire project in action, so that you can easily go in and see, for example, where's the most recent file uploads, what's going on with the project. A couple of other features that we added in here is that You can export this to Excel or export this to a PDF. So for example, maybe you're going to have a meeting with your development officer. You want to pull everything that's assigned to them, or you want to, talk about things that are pending approval. You can filter that out. If in this scenario, maybe I'm going to filter by pending approval. And you can export this out, and the export will honor whatever filters you have in place. So this is a nice way you can do just a quick report. So for example, if you just want a pending approval report, you can filter by that, kick that out as part of the overview. And if I get back over here, sorry, my little Zoom toolbar was in the way. We'll pull out this task overview again. And again, you can filter, you can do your export, you can, search for your comments. Really nice feature for your overall management of the process from end to end. So another thing I'd like to point out, just kind of as we wrap this up, again, this task overview is a new feature. So if you log into Procorum and you do not see this, we can enable it for you. So just submit a request to support at prolinksolutions.com. Reach out to your favorite person at ProLink. We can make sure that this is enabled for you, so you have that task overview capability all ready to go. And if you have any questions, if you ever need some assistance on how do you set these up, what are some of the best cases, you're welcome to reach out to us as well, and we can kind of help you get these work centers set up and show how these tasks can be configured. Right. So that's the end of our Procorum overview. Hopefully you learned a few new things about tasks. Hopefully we generate a little bit of excitement as well for the new task overview functionality. We're always interested in hearing your feedback and how we can make this really provide as much value as possible.
Thanks, Tom. We did get one question. I'll say the question now, and it's something that we could follow up with in our Q&A as a follow-up to this session. Are there additional reporting capabilities for a manager to be able to see a kind of dashboard view for all properties, thinking about annual compliance reporting, and if a manager could see how many properties still need to submit an annual compliance report? So what this is kind of referring to is across work centers reporting at that level, which is not available in Procorum, but there's definitely some opportunities with ProLinkHFA. So we can respond and post that answer as part of our follow-up materials that we provide after this session. Tom, thank you so much for the demo. I appreciate that. And I'll go ahead and let's see here, share my screen again just to follow up on our last items here. You should see our next webinar announcement. So again, I appreciate everybody's attendance in covering Procorum. Hopefully you're taking advantage of this feature already. We're using Procorum, and if not, it gives you a little bit more information about how that works with ProLinkHFA. The next session, we're going to be talking about what we're considering a game-changing enhancement to our data views functionality in ProLinkHFA, which is it's a reporting tool that we have built within the system. We can now combine multiple data views into one view, kind of like a joining of data views. So for those of you who are very familiar with using those, you can imagine what that means. And for those that might not be so familiar, we'll definitely be drilling down into what data views are and what this feature provides and really enhances within ProLinkHFA. We'll cover why it's needed, how it's going to be used, and who can take advantage of the feature. So I'll be joined by Kelly and Sinias at that time to cover that new feature. And the really cool thing is that we'll talk about a little bit more next time is this is one of the new features that really was driven by our ProLinkHFA user group. So our user group votes on new features that ProLink then develops throughout the year. And this is one of the larger features that they pushed and voted on, and we delivered to enhance the data views functionality. So definitely an example of the influence of our client base and the contributions of that group to improving the application for everyone's use. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you there, and any feedback you'd like to send us between now and then, we look forward to that as well. We'll follow up from this presentation with a copy of the presentation deck and a summary for that question asked in the chat. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.